Left-hand side of your screen. Ohio, Sherrod Brown defeated Mike DeWine. Pennsylvania, that is the race where Rick Santorum was defeated by Bob Casey. And in Rhode Island, Lincoln Chafee going down to Sheldon Whitehouse. Now, I want to show you the board that we have been playing with all night long. There were really, first of all, there are 33 Senate seats to be chosen tonight, but really only 11 were contested. Republicans were defending 8 of them, listed here. Democrats were defending 3. The Democrats held all 3 of the seats they were defending, in Maryland, in Michigan, and in New Jersey. Maryland with Cardin winning, Michigan with Stabenow winning, and New Jersey with Menendez winning. Now, in these 8 states, we've just declared that in Tennessee, we're projecting a win for Bob Corker. So there are only 3 Senate seats outstanding. If the Democrats are going to get to 6, you can see they have a net gain so far of 3 in Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Rhode Island. If they're going to get control of the Senate, they've got to win all 3 seats in Missouri and in Montana and in Virginia. Can they do it? Well, let's look at where those races stand right now. Let's start with Missouri. This is the race where Jim Talent, the incumbent Republican, is running against Claire McCaskill. And at this hour, with 69% of the district precincts reporting, Jim Talent, as you can see, has a 48,000 vote lead. 733 to Claire McCaskill's 685. It would appear, if that lead holds, that Jim Talent will hold that seat for the Republicans and make it impossible for the Democrats to gain control of the Senate.
But Democrats are still holding out hope here. They say that the big vote hasn't yet come in from Kansas City and St. Louis, where they expect McCaskill to do quite well. On the other hand, something that seems to be working against McCaskill, that initiative in the state of Missouri that was supposed to expand stem cell research, put that into the Missouri Constitution, looks like it's going down.
To defeat. That's the district, by the way, where Michael J. Fox made that ad supporting Claire McCaskill. And at the moment, Talent is leading, but as George points out, there is vote to come from Kansas City and St. Louis, a traditional Democratic vote. In the state of Montana, that is the state where Conrad Burns is the incumbent with 3 terms in the Senate, running against John Tester. We have 31% of the districts there, or the precincts, reporting, and Tester has a 14,000 vote lead. It would appear if that vote holds, and Burns has been an underdog in that race throughout, if that leads hold, Tester will carry that seat for the Democrats. And then the one that is just tight as a tick, and we've been following all night long. This is the Virginia Senate race between George Allen, the incumbent, and Jim Webb, the former Republican Navy Secretary who switched to the Democratic Party. 99% of the precincts reporting, and as you can look how close this is. I mean, this is what makes politics so fascinating. Jim Webb has 1,143,000 votes. George Allen has 1,141,000 votes. Our decision desk has said there's no way we're going to call that one tonight. We're going to get down to absentee ballots there in Virginia. We're invariably, certainly going to get to a recount in the state of Virginia.
That's exactly right. And meanwhile, in Montana, the voting machines have broken down, so they're counting by hand. So this is going to be a very long night, a very long day tomorrow. This Senate race, though, in Virginia, George Allen went into this race thinking he was going to be running for president in 2008 after getting propelled by a big win here. He had a lot of missteps, the famous macaca comment. It should have never been close, but Jim Webb has given him the toughest race of his life.
Yeah, a lot of people thought that if George Allen had never gone out of his house and campaigned, if he had just stayed home, he would have won this race, that his campaign actually cost him votes.
And it definitely did. On the other hand, you also have to remember the state of Virginia is changing. It's not part of the hard, deep South anymore. Northern Virginia, very diverse, moving much more towards the Democrats. It's really shifting.
All right. A lot of people have been worried about voting machines and whether they were going to be working properly in this election. Jake Tapper has been covering that. We're going to talk about just how easily and how efficiently the vote has been counted this year when we go to Jake after a commercial, and we're also going to run down where the governors stand at this hour. So stay with us. Our coverage of Vote 2006 continues.
Across the nation, Americans have gone to the polls. This is an ABC News special. Live coverage of Vote 2006 will continue in a moment. In this midterm election, the Republicans are fighting a difficult historic trend. In the 5 wartime congressional elections since 1860, the president's party has suffered significant defeats, losing an average of 36 House seats and 5 Senate seats. ABC Vote 2006 continues. Once again, Charles Gibson.
Back to our election headquarters in New York, and just to sum up where we stand right now, because it is the story of the night, the Democrats have gained control of the House of Representatives. They needed to take 15 seats away from the Republicans. So far, they have taken 21, and it is our projection when the night is over, they will take somewhere between 26 and 38 seats away from the Republicans. And so far, the Republicans have taken 0 seats away from the Democrats. The Senate, much more problematical. The Democrats have a gain of 3 seats. There are 3 races outstanding. The Democrats would have to carry all of them in Missouri and Montana and Virginia to take control of the Senate, and they are trailing significantly in Missouri, although Democrats are not giving up there. They are leading in Montana. And Virginia, well, Virginia is just essentially dead even, and we're not going to know until there is a recount who has won the state of Virginia. Now, a lot of people worried about the voting machines this year and whether they would function properly. 33% of this country in this election voted with machines that have never been used before in a national election. Jake Tapper has been checking on voting irregularities through the night in Columbus, Ohio. Jake, how's it going?
Well, there were glitches all over the country, from Cleveland to Tennessee to Indiana, but the good news is generally those seem to be in the minority. There were places where precincts in Ohio and elsewhere that had to be kept open past the normal time, past the deadline, so as to compensate for the voters that had to wait in lines because the machines were not operating correctly or because the poll workers didn't know how to use the machines correctly. That said, generally this is a good news day, at least it appears so right now.
All right. Jake Tapper, thanks, reporting from Ohio. Now, Nancy Pelosi will be, she's the presumptive next Speaker of the House of Representatives. She is a controversial figure. Republicans tried to make Pelosi an issue in many districts around the country, saying if you go to a Democratic majority, you're going to have a liberal from San Francisco as the Speaker of the House of Representatives. She would be the 52nd Speaker of the House, the first woman ever to hold that job. And if you're a good student of history and of government, you know that the Speaker of the House is 3rd in line for the presidency. Nancy Pelosi came out and talked to Democratic supporters at headquarters in Washington. Here's a little bit of what she had to say.
Tonight is a great victory for the American people. Today, the American people voted for change, and they voted for Democrats to take our country in a new direction. And that is exactly what we intend to do.
Nancy Pelosi declaring victory to a very ebullient group of Democrats. They will control the House of Representatives, will the Democrats, for the first time since 1994. We'll take a break and be back.
Live coverage of the vote across America will continue live from ABC News election headquarters in New York in just a moment.
And we welcome you back to our election headquarters in New York. There are a number of referenda that were on various state ballots that we want to talk about because they got a lot of publicity, and probably none more than in South Dakota. As you may know, the legislature in South Dakota passed a very, very broad ban on abortion. Actually did so hoping that this would go to the Supreme Court and they could get a definitive ruling on the issue of abortion. But then on the state ballot in South Dakota was a measure to reinstate that broad ban on abortion, and it has gone down. It's been defeated, so that broad ban will not be instituted in the state of South Dakota.
And a lot of people in the pro-life movement think it was a miscalculation to try to push this very, very restrictive ban, which didn't even include exceptions for rape or incest. For the voters of South Dakota, that was just too much to bear.
Yes, it actually was interesting that people on both sides of the abortion issue were actually arguing against it. And if there's any surprise, and I don't mean to try to read the voters of South Dakota, it actually sort of surprises me that it got 45%.
Well, you know, that's the hardline pro-life vote in America right there.
Right. Gay marriage bans were on the ballot in 8 states. We don't have enough information on 3 of them, but a gay marriage ban has passed in the state of Idaho, in South Carolina, in Tennessee, and in Virginia, and in Wisconsin. We still don't know the results. They're not definitive yet in South Dakota, Colorado, or Arizona, but in 5 states, a gay marriage ban has passed. And then there were minimum wage increases on the ballots in 6 states. It's interesting. The federal government has been stymied on this issue. A lot of Democrats pushing it to get a federal increase in the minimum wage, but many states are doing it on their own. It was on the ballot in 6 states, as you saw, in Ohio, Missouri, Arizona, Montana, and Nevada. It passed. And still, we don't have enough information yet in Colorado.
And what Democrats saw here was the Republican strategy, conservative strategy on gay marriage. They saw these initiatives being used in states to get their way and to turn out the vote. They said, let's do the same thing with our most popular issue, the minimum wage. They seem to be passing. It is also one of the top agenda items for the presumptive speaker to be Nancy Pelosi.
Yes, there was some thought in the state of Missouri that it might turn out a vote for Clara McCaskill, the Democrat running for the Senate there. She is still trailing, although that race is still too close to call. And you pointed out there was an expansion of stem cell research on the Missouri ballot, and that has been defeated.
Amazing. You know, what the opponents of embryonic stem cell research were able to do with that initiative is say that it was also allowing human cloning, and it would lead to women selling their eggs, and that argument proved persuasive.
And that was a race where Michael J. Fox went in with a very effective ad in favor of Clara McCaskill, also obviously arguing implicitly for the stem cell research expansion in Missouri, and it didn't pass.
It did not pass. Unclear yet what effect it had on this actual Senate race. So far, it likely drove up turnout on both sides.
All right. So we're going to get to the governor's races when we continue, because there are 36 governors up today, and there are a number of switches, all of them from the Republican to the Democratic side. And we will run those down, as well as give you what happened in the California governor's race when we continue. Stay with us.
ABC Vote 2006 will continue after this from our ABC stations.